So we're going to do this solo. And sometimes it's the only way to get a report done. Greg DePalma here for our weekly. Hopefully, I can't say weekly because we won't be talking Rutgers football next week after Wagner. If we do, then we have some problems. But we're going to be on as much as we can during the season to talk Rutgers football, and I'm certainly glad we're doing it following a win over Boston College to kick off the season. Want to thank Ryan Dunleavy, of course, from the New York Post, Rutgers grad, for joining us to preview the season last week. He'll be with us periodically throughout the season, as will Richie Schneiderite, of course, covering Rutgers football, the Night Report, and of course, you can follow him on Rivals and on Twitter at Rivals Richie. So let's do this, though. Boston College, what a game! It's interesting because it's one of those games where if Rutgers loses, you're just like, oh, this offense is just going to hold us back again. But you still are like finding, you could have still found some pretty good positives, like the defense was still, even though there were 3 touchdown passes, this is a quarterback going into the season projected to be a potential first-round draft pick. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, just like I don't feel that Levis is a first-round draft pick from Kentucky. But remember, Malik Willis was supposed to be a first-round draft pick too, and Matt Corral. And where did those guys land? Anyway, Dracovic, get his name right, through 3 touchdown passes, it's going to happen. Zay Flowers, definitely a top, I'd say 3-round draft pick at this point, maybe 4, depends, of course, on his height. I would assume that based on his speed, that's going to do really well and compensate. So I could definitely see him in the top 2 rounds, even depending on how things go. He's got a long season ahead of him. But it turned out Rutgers got the win, and so we don't have to worry about that kind of conjecture. What we can kind of look at, though, are many positives. And it does start on the defense. Let's be realistic. The defensive line, we have heard so many positive things about the defensive line coming into the season. We've talked about it on a few of our shows, and it really did hold up. I mean, not just because of Bailey. And I got to tell you, that kid was incredible. What is he, like 250 pounds? He looks like he's 220. I mean, seriously, maybe it's, sometimes you put on a certain number and it deceives you. But yeah, because I'm like, who's this safety? And he kind of looks like a safety, to tell you the truth. He looks like an overgrown safety at that number. But no, he's an edge rusher, and he had an awesome game. Wow, what an awesome game. Wasn't just the 2 big sacks late in the game, but constant pressure. So it was big time. I mean, you can go right along the defensive line for Rutgers. And, I mean, you got the guys, Hanatu, Maije, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name correctly, but you knew that those guys were going to add some good depth, solid rotation. Aaron Lewis, we were expecting some impact from Aaron Lewis this season. I think we got a little bit about that in the game. And Hamilton came up big on several plays, and he could still be the top defensive lineman on the team. But so far, 1 game, Bailey's got to be the guy. Tremendous performance. I was kind of embarrassed when we talked about not having Teray, who was our sack leader, 4.5 last season. So it's like, yeah, we're gonna miss him. There's no question about it. But when your sack leader has 4.5 sacks, a couple of things with that. First of all, okay, how is he really that good? Is he really a sack leader? And he may be. Or is, and on the flip side, that's just pretty embarrassing that your sack leader has only 4.5 sacks. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I just don't think that it's going to be the case. And I don't remember what the sack total was for the team last year, but we're going to beat that for sure. And I got to tell you right now, if Wagner attempts over, 35, 40 passes in the game, I want to get close to double-digit sacks in this game. Really do. Because if you want to establish yourself as a dominating defensive front, you've got to dominate teams like Wagner. So that better be the case. How about linebacker? Remember, spot we weren't really quite sure of. And I didn't get a chance to bust Ryan Dunleavy. And I will next time I talk to him if I remember it. But I told Ryan that I was surprised that Futakasi wasn't drafted. And as far as a player that I thought should have been, I honestly thought he should have been a mid-round draft pick. Okay. And the fact that he had to struggle coming in as a non-factor in the offseason, like, oh yeah, who's that guy? To have to fight his way and earn a spot just once again proves how good the player was. So we know how good Fatukasi is. To miss him big time. But and what I meant by busting Ryan is because I remember we had this conversation a few times about it, and Ryan didn't really feel that Fatukasi was going to be as an impactful player in the NFL. And look, I'm not saying he's going to be superstar in the NFL. I never said that. But I definitely felt, like I said, he warranted to be a third, fourth round draft pick. Now we'll see if that happens. It's still to be debated. But just he's proven himself so far. Still a huge loss for Rutgers. And I get that. And you got the injury situation as well at linebacker. And I get that. And I got all that. And then a couple other guys with who've been there, Fogg forever. And I get that. But this is part of the reason why I was confident that they were going to be okay in certain spots, including linebacker, because when you look back, you have to look ahead of yourself 5, 6, 10 years down the road and say, okay, we get to that point. What's the talent difference? The talent difference has got to be incredible. So much so that Fatukasi is going to be the only guy we're going to kind of remember still. A guy like Fogg, okay, yeah, nice player and stuff. But a guy like Fogg could never start on a Rutgers team in 6, 7 years from now. That can't happen if Rutgers is going to get to where we all want them to get to. So my point quickly is that next wave of talented linebackers have got to be unit-wise a lot better than what Rutgers had the last 3 or 4 years. Even though you look at it and you go, wow, look at all those tackles, look at all those starts. And let's just take Fatukasi out of it. There was still a lot of solid play at linebacker, veterans. These guys got to be better. And I know they're not better now, say, particularly because it's game one for some freshmen, second season for some other players, but still, why not? Why can't these guys be better even though they're younger? Why can't a Powell have just as much, if not more, of an impact than a Fogg did in his final season as Powell is right now? I say why not? Because if he's talented enough, and he definitely is, that's just the way it's going to be. That's why with the right coaching, with the right recruiting, and if you trust in Greg Schiano as much as I do, you saw what happened the first time around. And it wasn't with Big Ten talent either. He accomplished what he accomplished with Big East talent. That's the amazing part, is to think back at how Rutgers was in the top 10, top 5 for a week, couple of weeks, and they did it with the talent from the Big East. Now just imagine what could be possible this time around with talent from the second best conference in all of college football. Okay, so let's kind of move on because I don't want this to be an hour kind of deal every week. But obviously I'm excited. Okay, secondary. Now here's the thing that just was nuts. We all went into the season thinking, yeah, defensive line is going to be real good. Linebacking is going to be the biggest question, but that secondary is also going to be very strong. You got a number 1 corner in Melton. You got a whole bunch of other talented players. So yeah, this is going to be, and a matter of fact, if you remember, even in the good old days of Rutgers, including, and we saw it the last couple of years too, Rutgers has always been the most susceptible against a running team. Somebody that could dominate them up front. Because Schiano has always been about bringing, and he has had this plan for what, when he started Rutgers, 20 years ago. He had this plan. This was it. Now, I'm not saying he's the first one to adopt this, but he has the plan of, I'm going to take defensive backs and I'm going to move them to linebacker. And I'm going to take linebacker prospects and I'm going to move them to the defensive line. he did that because of where he was, how he had to recruit. Now he doesn't have to do that as much nowadays. But the point is that he always wanted, because he didn't have the ability to go out and get the 300-pound offensive lineman and, you know, the physically imposing defensive lineman, et cetera, et cetera. So he had speed. Speed, speed, speed. Speed is what I need, and he had speed. So he had a speed, rush, blitz kind of team, which was susceptible against power rushing teams. And going into last week's game, that's even the way we kind of felt, that, hey, you got a young linebacking crew. That's the question. And linebacking is really very important, as you know, against the run. Well, they got a 1,000-yard rusher. They got that BC offensive line, which, even though they got a lot of guys coming back, it's going to be a problem, you would think. All right, we're going to give up our share of rushing yards. Probably going to give up 100. So rushing yards, let's just get given. Let's just make sure we hold it to under 150, and I think maybe we'll be okay. If you would have told me that we held them to under 30 yards rushing, and I know you got to throw in the sacks and all that, but you get the gist. I would have figured that we would have what is this, 20-3? The secondary, now I am willing. Again, Djokovic still has day one, day two talent at quarterback. And Rutgers is not going to face many quarterbacks like that this season. And Flowers. Okay, again, could be day one, day two receiver. Could be. That is right there, as good as it's going to get. Ohio State's coming up. But you see what I'm saying? But still, did anybody expect Melton to get beat a few times the way he did? You know, if he got beat once, but he seemed to get beat about 3 or 4 times. And that was a little bit interesting. Disconcerting, maybe is a better word. After a win, maybe it's a good thing. No ego. Dial back in. Got to be better. But Schiano will say this, and it's wise. Hey, it's easier to teach kids after a win than it is after a loss. A lot more pleasing. And this is what it'll be. Pleasing. Hey, you know what? We still won. Now just go get better. We need Melton to get better. But again, he's not going to face many, except Ohio State, maybe Michigan. I haven't really gone up and down the schedule, but Michigan, Ohio State, many teams on schedule that are going to have the receiving talent that Flowers and BC has, and the combination quarterback receiver. Okay, fine. Still a little bit disconcerting because of the fact that the defensive line was so good. It happens. Still, even if the team lost, we were very, very pleased overall, because you can't shut down a team like that. So if you're gonna give something up, you know, I actually prefer the passing game now, especially nowadays in college football. I mean, everybody's passing the football. I'm not used to Rutgers being a very good run defense. I'm just not. So I was really pleased by that. That's defensive line and the linebackers, and also players like Christian Izzian. I mean, come on. What kind of game did he have? He might be our breakout defensive back this season. Awesome performance. Love it. You know, Young, of course, he is a solid player back there. Whether or not, as Richie has mentioned before, speed is definitely the one thing that you have to, and you know, I remember we got beat on that one touchdown in zone. I'm not sure whose fault that was, because I replayed that like 4 times, and I'm trying to figure out whose fault was that. I can't see. I mean, they know whose fault it was, but to me, it was just maybe just hey, sometimes the offense has a very good play called against your defense and beat you. And I think that's what it was on that play. I don't think anybody did anything wrong in Rutgers secondary, as far as I'm concerned, what I saw. But okay. But look, Longer Beam, Abraham. I mean, you can just go on. There's talent in that secondary. I think it's going to come through all season long. Braswell with a huge interception. I mean, how huge was that interception? And he made a couple of plays. Nice to see that after not appearing last year. So really, if you go through this, early in the game, it was ugly. We all know that. I didn't know what was going on. I started to think immediately, you know, I guess Richie and Ryan are right. This team is too young. It's just something's wrong. This isn't good. We all felt that way. But then Braswell made that big interception, and that changed most of what was going on, because all of a sudden it was like, oh, kind of reminds us. And recall, I should rewind a little bit, because how frustrating was. I think it was the second series, I believe, on the longer beam sack. Might have been the first, when longer beam blitz. Matter of fact, I think it was the first, wasn't it? He comes in and blitzes, perfectly timed blitz, corner blitz, and the ball's sitting right there for Powell. I mean, that should have been a scoop and score. Should have been. And when we didn't do that, and then BC got the field position, and then eventually led to a touchdown, like, that's why you have to make those plays. That's it. That was a 14-point swing when Powell couldn't come up with that ball. Maybe 7. Well, actually 14 in all, but I'm just saying, because I'm just throwing in the fact that actually, let's just move on. Fact is, huge swing. I'm not the math major. Those guys are. Braswell comes up with the big interception now. And that led to one Crookshank reverse, and then the reverse touchdown. And all of a sudden, wow, could you believe it? As bad as we played it, 7-6, we got something going on, and then the kid misses the extra point. And I'm going to tell you right now, that did not shock me. Anytime you get, whether it's a freshman, transfer who's never kicked before in a big league environment, anybody that's never done that before ever in their lives, that first play, that first time they step foot, a lot of guys that first, unless you're a quarterback, where you get the ball handed to you, where you get the ball thrown to you, that kind of stuff. There's a lot more guys that don't really get seen what they're doing on their first play, big play, and everybody's, not really watching them because they're watching everybody else. If you're a guard, you're a defensive back, the pressure ain't on you as much. You're a kicker and everybody's looking at you, and you get this pressure, and you've never done this before. It did not shock me. When he missed it, it was like, of course. But don't do it again. And he didn't. That was important. Okay, so they're down 7-6. Once again, you get the touchdown by BC, and they still control the game. Huge defensive stop by Rutgers. Okay, that happened, I believe it was following the Wimsatt interception. Not a good interception. It's going to happen. He's a young kid. And because the D did a good job, forced a long field goal, pretty long, decently long, still makeable. And instead of going down 2 scores into the locker room, psychologically that's big. Rutgers is going to that locker room feeling pretty good. And we didn't play very well. We had a turnover. We had a bunch of penalties, all this other. We're only down a score. So I think they had to feel pretty good about themselves. Then in the second half, they had that run stop. First of all, Izzian, huge negative 5-yard run stop. He had made several plays behind the line of scrimmage. Then Djokovic, bad snap. This is where Rutgers, this was clearly luck. Okay. Even though you have to give props to Bailey for making the recovery in a rugby style pile. But if you look back to it, that was almost like you usually don't get those that come back to you. When Powell should have recovered, worst thing that should have happened is Powell should have had that fumble recovery. No scoop and score, just a fumble recovery. It was like, here, we're going to give you another chance. Do you want it? And Rutgers took advantage of it. That one, to me, was harder than Powell's. But they got it. And they got a break. Huge break. What you need when you're an underdog, you're on the road, you need a break. At some point during the game, they got their break. And they didn't settle for the field goal. Scored a touchdown. I do not agree. Maybe Schiano would feel the same way next time he has this opportunity, but why are you going for it? No need. Way too early in the game. You don't have a blazing offense. Unless you've got some really cool gadget play that is like, hey, you know what? This is something that we worked on against this team. Maybe they felt that way, but I didn't really think you should be doing that, taking points off the board. No, way too early for that. But whatever. Big touchdown, only down 2. And Monangai with the touchdown run. Then you had the play where the touchdown pass for Boston College, where Milton it looked like he was a little off balance, but it was a very well timed backdoor touchdown pass See that a lot. Very well diagrammed play. Milton also kind of slipped on it, but he's got to do better than that. That's when it comes to, who wants it more. You got to be physical. You can't slip. I know it's easy saying it from here, but still, when you're already kind of having a suspect game at that point, you got to come up with a play. And that's the one thing Milton did not do, is come up with a play. Okay. And that was disappointing. No question. It wasn't one of those plays, though. I mean, if that was the only thing he gave up, I would have shrugged it off. It's going to happen. But with everything else, it was like, come on. I mean, this is just not a good day, not a good first game for Milton. All right. Anyway, touchdown. Rutgers comes down to score a field goal. All right. 6-point game going into the fourth quarter. It's again Rutgers defensive line coming up with. I mean, with Hamilton and Bailey just harassed Djokovic, and it was so nice to see. I mean, this is something we haven't seen around here for years, and it was awesome. Anyway, even through the harassment, they did a good job of moving the football, got back into Rutgers field position, and so far the game is going still as planned for BC. And for Rutgers fans feeling, they're going to eventually another field goal, they're going to take a 9-point lead, or if they score a touchdown here, you kind of figure it's definitely over. Boom. Longerbean comes up with the interception, which was awesome. So he gets the interception. He gets a big sack, which almost led to another turnover. Should have. And boom, just like that, they come down with a big turnover with a little less than 13 minutes left in the game. A couple of things that I noticed during the game, though, that was not good. And I believe one of the plays happened after that, during that Rutgers drive. After that was the left tackle play. There were several times, definitely twice, where both left tackles left, and it might have been Simon in both plays, like just completely defensive. Cannot do that. Okay, so we must get better play out of our left tackle moving forward. So that was very disappointing. But again, good defense. Okay, you got to step it up, though. First game of the season, must be better. Rutgers gets pinned after one punt kind of deal. Rutgers gets pinned. We all know what happens after that. What is this? A 12-play, 96-yard drive with took 5 minutes and 2 seconds off the clock. And here's the thing I thought about this, is that I believe a couple things. First of all, this is where, in my mind, this is where coaching comes in. This is where training camp comes in. Preparation, the chop mantra, to just, whether it's just you just keep chopping away. What that also means is, if you're going to keep chopping away, if you're going to have a mantra like that, what that means is you better be in better condition than the other team. It's like in the Hoosiers movie. You are not going to be, no team is going to outcondition us. It's basically the deal. We're going to work our butts off, and we may not have the talent the other team has, but we will work harder, and we will be in better condition. And that, to me, I think had a little bit to play in it. Because where did it come from? Where did it come from? You can't tell me it was like, hey, you know what? We got this in our back pocket here, and I'm just gonna put this right there, and we're gonna have that game. We're gonna have that game plan, trick, drive, that under our sleeves moment. This is now we're ready. I just don't believe that. I think I tend to believe more of, we started to wear them down. We were still mentally in this game like we were at the beginning of the game, even though, or I should say before the beginning of the game. We never lost faith. And I'll end, when you have an offensive line now that can go 300, 5, 10, 20, 30 across the board, that is going to help you in fourth quarters, especially when you attempt to run the football like Rutgers did most of the game. They didn't, and that's going to be the way that they're going to have to play football, of course. because they don't have a passing game right now. So they have to run the football. And it was tremendous to see. Now, I still believe, as much as I love the way Monangai looked, especially in that drive, same thing for Salam. And kudos to Salam. Richie's been talking about, I haven't really seen it myself and was still kind of wondering, he's not the biggest guy, but he finally came through in a way where I was a believer. Now, do I think he's going to be Ray Rice? No. And that's the one thing that I still believe at some point. I don't know Brown's the guy, but at some point, if you go back to what worked the first time with Rutgers under Schiano, it was always running first. Defense, special teams, running the football. And I don't believe Rutgers has that Ray Rice guy yet. When they get that guy, that is when I think they start taking that next step. Okay, and it's gonna come. That doesn't mean that these kids, these that are running the ball right now for Rutgers, aren't solid players. I mean, maybe they turn out to be better than I think, but I think they're solid. I think they're good football players, and they demonstrated that week one. But there's a big difference between a solid player. Look at Pacheco. Pacheco was better than these guys, right? He was a 7th round draft pick. So when we have that 2nd, 3rd, 4th round running back draft pick, that's when another part of the program's ascension will. Anyway, what a great drive. Great runs by Monangai and Salam. Excellent blocking, not just by the linemen, but by the wide receivers. Excellent blocking by the wide receivers and the tight end. And the tight ends. So really got to give it across the board. Tremendous effort. So I think the combination, it's still like a summer game. You have a summer game. You got maybe a team wearing the other team down. You get the conditioning, all that wrapped in one, and I think it all kind of boiled into that drive. So 2:43 left in the game. And by the way, the other thing, 3 third down and 1 conversions on the drive, which was awesome because they didn't go to 4th and 1. So every time they had in that drive, 3rd and 1, they didn't have to go to 4th. When could you have said that last year? Even when you had a quarterback, because that's the one thing. Let's keep this in mind. And I don't want to feel like I bash Vedral, because I think Vedral, because I have said this before, I think the kid is just amazing, and the fact that he's a captain is just no shock. Okay, all that said and done, and I do believe that he's got the capability of winning a game for Rutgers this season. Really do. I think if he were to play and get into the mix and they win one of their games, hopefully they get 6. I think he could be the guy that helps us win that one. Not start a game and we win it, and that's his only game that he starts. I'm talking about actually he helps us win a game. But I don't believe there's much more than that. And because of that, I really think that they're better off in this situation. That's not going to happen. When Vedral's healthy, he's going to play. And then I don't know what we're going to do with this quarterback stuff. To me, it's fine right now, but I hope that they at least would start to go more towards, and they did it in the game as the game wore on, and they need to do it more often. Is if you're going to do this approach, it's got to be every other series, or maybe even, give them 2 or 3 series in a row. And then give the other guy 2, the switching on the same drive, it's got to stop. Look, you want to bring in Langdon, fine. I don't mind that. One thing that I think that works against Langdon, though, is the fact that the more just I can concentrate on being a tight end, the better it's going to be for him at the next level. So he can actually, because him dropping that pass on the first drive on 3rd down was so deflating early. And I think it led to a lot of other mistakes. I just would like to see him concentrate on being a tight end, but I get why they don't do that. Like the touchdown, the Crookshank reverse, was because Langdon was that quarterback. They had to pay attention to him. So I know right now they need him. They need him for a handful of plays under center because Wimsat's not ready. And let me say this too. I don't think that's what I was saying. I'm not saying it's a bad approach. The reason is as far as limiting the number of snaps for Wimsat and Simon. I just think that it should happen another way. And I like the approach because what they're doing is they're as they limit the amount of snaps that both Wimsat and Simon have, they are limiting the amount of mistakes they can make. So if you put Wimsat out for the entire game, you are now going to get not only double mistakes, but you're going to get more than double mistakes. That's just the way it works. Not just, all right, double the playing time, double the mistake. No, even more. Because just the way the game flows. That's just the way it is. Same thing for Simon. So I'm okay with this. Okay, so and plus you're able to zero in on a certain number of plays that work best for those players. So the more plays that you give them, now they're out of their comfort zone. They're not. I didn't like the way that they were. I didn't like the way that they handled these specific plays that they would have to use and have to be part of the game plan if they doubled their snaps. So I'm completely okay with that until one of these, because that's why Greg's not saying it. Coach ain't saying anything like, oh, we're going to do this differently. We're going to do this. He's not telling because he doesn't know. He doesn't know until he sees either one of those two young quarterbacks step up and look better than the other one. Once that starts happening, that guy's going to get more snaps. And then all of a sudden, it's going to go from 50-50 to 60-40 to 70-30. And all of a sudden, you've got a starting quarterback. And we all hope it's Wimsat. I'll tell you right now, I don't really care. If Simon winds up being the guy, then, more power to him because on a lot of plays, Simon looks better than Wimsat. The dimension that Wimsat brings to the table is, as we saw with the big 40-yard run. And that's something I think that they should implement a lot more as far as, hey, you know what? We're going to run this type of play. Don't be afraid of holding on to that ball a couple more times. And I said this last year with Vedral. It annoyed the hell out of me that for the first 2 quarters of games, he would never hold on to the football. I mean, how ridiculously, if you just early in the game hold on to the ball once, you give the defense something to think about. When you're constantly on film, never holding on to the ball, like the first, hey, you know what? Because they use these stats. Statistically, Vedral has attempted, let's see, RPOs. He's attempted, I don't know, let's just say 50 in the first half for the first 5 games of the season. And he has held on to the ball twice. Well, what are you going to do? Oh, but in the second half of games, he's held onto the ball 10 times. So what it's telling you is early in games, I'm not going to be faked out by his approach. I'm going right for the ball carrier early in games. But so anyway, the fact is, same thing for Wimsat. I believe that should be the case. If you're going to hold on to the ball, sometimes it's always better to hold on to it to give him something to think about. Anyway, I like the approach for Wimsat and Simon at this point. Definitely like the way Simon's coming along. He could, and probably look, if he had an opportunity, if he was in the MAC, or there are a number of schools in the FBS, the group of 5 that he would be starting for. Okay. I don't know what Wimsat's ceiling is yet. This 4-star label, it's I can kind of see what there's talking about with the 4-star with Wimsat, but that's got to be all projection. There's nothing from what I've seen with Wimsat as a 4-star, and I've seen other 4-star kids and 5-star. And 5-star is just one level up from 4-star, and I see just a tremendous difference between a 5-star and a 4-star. No, Gavin Wimsat, if you're telling me he's a 4-star coming out of high school, he's a low 4-star, really low 4-star. By the way, why do you think we got him, or how we were able to get him? I mean, if he was a high 4-star, 5-star, we're not getting our hands on him. But that's okay. All right, now it's about coaching. Now it's about developing the kid. And he's going to need time. We all knew that. He's just going to need more time. The hope is that he doesn't turn the ball over too much, that kind of deal. Wagner, hey man, if you feel like you have to wait a couple of scores, fine. But I want to start seeing them open the ball up in the passing game, and as soon as you feel comfortable doing it, do it. Okay, just let's start winging it because you're not. Same thing, maybe even with Temple. Once you start feeling a little bit comfortable in that Temple game, I want to because I'm probably not going to be on the air next week. Probably won't be on the air again until after the Temple game. But if this team is not 3-0, that is going to be just something I do not want to talk about. So just get ahead of Temple early enough in that football game and start throwing the football a little bit more. Okay, because then when we start building things up and start playing the bigger and better teams, you have to throw the football. You've got to be able to throw the football a little bit. We have a guy that's not Melton, but we got a guy that's very talented. We got two talented receivers. Harris, one that's really the number one, and we have to get him the ball. I don't want to hear it like if it's Harris's fault that we're not getting the ball to him. It's clearly not. We have got to be able to stretch we didn't stretch the defense once. Did anybody see a bomb in a game? Did anybody see a ball that was like overthrown, underthrown more than like 20 yards, 30 yards? I didn't. So that's something that we're going to work on. But let's get back to this game. And you get the Isian and Bailey sack, and then the Bailey sack again. And it caused a 4th and 25. Now I haven't looked at any of the news, and I should have done that. Find out what the Boston College faithful were saying about the call to go for it. I will say that under that circumstance, I think you got to go for it. And I also think that you have the opportunity to take a safety. And if you think an onside kick is a better chance, then do that. The strategy, the way they were going, is telling me that what you're banking on is that maybe you come up with a turnover, or maybe Rutgers has a penalty, moves them back a little bit. You stuff them like immediately, first down, second down, third down. But did they do that the previous drive? So what gave you the indication that was going to change? You couldn't stop them the previous drive, so why would you think you're going to stop them here? It was a tough call, but these are the things that you have to have in your head. You have to have an assistant coach that goes over this scenario with you that, hey, you know what? This is what we talked about. Okay, this is the time. We got a card here, and this is what it says. So what do you think? Now that we see the flow of the game, you got one or two calls. What do you want to do? One or two or three calls, and I don't know if that was the right call. I just, maybe field position wise too. Maybe they were thinking something. I don't know. But like I said, I didn't get an opportunity to find out what the reasoning is. But that was good for us as Rutgers fans. Because I'll tell you right now, two things during the game in that fourth quarter. And maybe you would agree with me or not. But right after they scored a touchdown to go up 22-21. And I looked at the clock. I'm like, oh, geez. Okay. Well, because I remember the announcer, like a few minutes, like as Rutgers was at midfield, the announcer said something of the line like, hey, man, we're going to, oh, no, he goes, hey, Rutgers has to think about whether they should score too early, and I'm saying, I don't care about that. I mean, we have had no offense. We did not drive. I mean, don't forget, our touchdown drive was 6 yards. Okay, so I don't want to hear anything about how we have to milk the clock to score a touchdown. We're not Alabama. Okay, if we score a touchdown, great. I don't care. I'll worry about that later. So, score the touchdown, and I'm like, okay, 2.5 minutes to go. This is not good. We have a quarterback and a receiver that we haven't had a good job. We didn't really stop them too much this game. This is not looking pretty good. All they got to do is get in field goal range. So yeah, not looking good. But then all of a sudden, the pressure, and it went, I mean, just like that. And it was just amazing. But even at 4th and 25, to me, you have a quarterback like that and a receiver like that. And you're saying, hey, you know what? Because I'll tell you, here's the other thing. Let's say you don't get it. Let's say you get 15 instead of 25. What's the difference? Seriously, what's the difference? So then Rutgers winds up the ball at the 25 or the 30. Maybe they even kick a field goal. Well, you still can get a touchdown. Or how do you know our guy ain't going to miss a field goal? You couldn't even make an extra point before. So anyway, I was relieved when they took the ball out of Djokovic's hands. I was like, oh, awesome. Thank you. Give us the ball back. Thank you. I don't want to. No, don't change your mind. He even called a timeout too to waste that. So good. Punt, please. That's how I felt. Maybe you felt that way too. All right. So I think another thing is that getting a win, as we talked about, was going to be very important for their bowl hopes based on the way the schedule was. Because if they do what they're supposed to do over the next 2 games and they get 3 wins, now they just have to win 3 out of the rest of this out of the rest of the schedule. Remember when we went over this and I said that I thought that they should become. I thought they could be bowl eligible and win 6 games. No doubt, this was going to make me feel a lot better. I still had them winning 6, even if they didn't beat Boston College. But clearly, I mean, I know that even Ryan and Richie would feel now after beating Boston College that they're in great shape to have a shot at winning a bowl now that they've beaten Boston College. You look at their schedule again. Iowa can't score a touchdown against South Dakota State, and good team Iowa played, but that's just making a point. FCS team. Nebraska, okay. Nebraska's Nebraska, and I know we lost to them a couple of years ago at home. When did we play Nebraska? How long ago was it? I felt like we played them just like last year. Looking at the schedule. Oh, yeah, no, 2 years ago we lost to Nebraska at home by 7. That was Schiano's first year. Yeah. So this isn't no gimme. It's just the point is that especially after watching Nebraska and Northwestern, they're like Rutgers. Okay, that's maybe they still have a little bit more talent than we do, but we got the coaching edge, at least with Nebraska. Then you got Indiana at home. And yes, they beat Illinois, but they were very lucky to beat Illinois the way that they did. And even though we're not playing Illinois this year, we're playing Indiana. They're just another team. Are we better than them? Are they better than us? I actually think we have more talent than Indiana does right now. So, and we're at home. They have the psychological edge of losing. Revenge in college football is very important, but I don't care about that right now. So those are 3 games that are, in my opinion, coin flips. 3 coin flip games. Then you're at Minnesota, as I said last week. Minnesota couldn't beat Bowling Green at home last year. And a matter of fact, they had a very close win, a very close. I think they won that Miami of Ohio game. I can't remember if that was last year. When was that? The Miami of Ohio game? No, they beat Miami of Ohio last year by 5, and ended up losing to Bowling Green a couple weeks later. Okay, so and I'm just gonna give them a win. Okay, so because that's on the road too, and they lost those 2 games. It said we're at home for Minnesota, and then you got Penn State, Michigan State, and Maryland. We just beat Michigan State a couple of years on the road, a couple of years ago. Okay, so we could do it. I am not losing to Maryland every year. Schiano can fly circles around Loxley as a head coach. Loxley is just a superior recruiter. That's why he has good talent there. There's a bunch of recruits in the area that he has done a great job of bringing home, staying home. That's what Loxley's good at. But X's and O's, no. And I am not losing to Maryland every year. I'm not saying Rutgers will win that game, but last time we played at Maryland. So again, game we're going to be an underdog with is way towards the end of the season. But again, not winnable game. And with Penn State, I know I know Penn State is who Penn State is. And people have already said, hey, man, they barely beat Purdue, so why can't we beat them? There's still a big psychological deal with Penn State and Rutgers that we have to get over. They are still to me, I think they're our biggest potential rivals. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but we have to beat them. And I think, I know, every year we're going to get closer and closer talent-wise. Now, will this year be the year? I don't know, but I'm not going to say it won't be a game that will be decided until the 4th quarter, because I would say it will be. All those games I just talked about, are games that should be decided in the fourth quarter in my mind. And I'm supposed to believe that they're going to lose more than half of them. Why? They should be able to win half. Win half, lose half. Now at 3-0, win half, lose half. You've got yourself bowl eligibility. They do have to improve that passing game. Again, there's no question about that. I would expect that to happen. They're young kids. The more and more reps and practice and games and all that kind of stuff, the better. So that's good. Stay away from injuries still. It's early in the season, so you want to make sure, especially in these next two games, that they avoid any sort of weird injuries, because there really shouldn't be. I mean, good players should not be playing a whole lot, but Wimsatt and Simon should. You know, the two of the most important players on the team, because they're quarterbacks, have to play. Everybody else can wind up with 50% less snaps. Temple, not until the second half and the game's over. And I'm still saying that because Temple is still, it's. I know we should dominate them, and I get that, and we probably will. But you just got to make sure the game's over first before you start talking like that. What's really good about this, as I close, is that when Rutgers comes out of the Temple game, and before they have to play Ohio State, they get the Iowa home game. And I hope, if they're 3-0 and Ohio State's looming, and because they're going to get beat up, I hope that the fans, you better show up and you better be rambunctious. And I that would be so awesome program. Yeah, it's nice to beat a Michigan State. It's nice to win some of the, but to beat Iowa coming off a Big Ten championship season game, not winter season. That especially the winning culture the program has, and the coach that they have, but that is a winnable football game. Boy, will that be a ugly football game. I mean, Rutgers actually, Iowa had a couple of skill position injuries to keep an eye, so that hurt them a little bit. But talent wise, offensively, those are I don't see a big difference. So that is going to be a game that goes down to defense, special teams, turnovers. It's going to be, I don't even know it's going to be a hard game to watch. Hopefully our offense will pick it up by then. Anyway, let's keep this going, man. Doesn't it feel great? It's not like we just beat Wagner week and scored 80 points or something, because that still wouldn't satisfy us. It wouldn't satisfy anybody. But to go on the road and beat, nobody thought we were winning this game. Really. I mean, I know it was only 7 points, and even we had our doubts. And anybody even predicted they were going to win? Everybody had their doubts, of course. I mean, we're the underdog, and they're the team that's been winning for years, and they haven't had taken a season off kind of thing. And we're still trying to get back to that level, and they've got that quarterback and that receiver. So it was very impressive. Let's keep in mind that we didn't have the lead until 2.5 minutes left in the game. That's how close that game was to Rutgers going 0-1 and us going, yeah, we didn't win the game, but it could have been better. Either way, yeah, okay. It's hey, the defense really looked good, and we got something to build on, but got to win. And boy, does it feel good. Don't expect to be back next week. So I'll check back with you guys before Iowa. And I might even be able to swing a guest. Tom Kakert, who covers Iowa. I just did a preseason show with him a few weeks back. That's available on the channel. If you want to find out about Iowa football, find out everything about their players on the interview I did with Tom. I'll put a link in the if you don't know already, all you gotta do is click the more on the title, and you get open it up and see everything, the links and a whole bunch of other stuff that we put in there, and we'll put the link in there for the interview. So check that out, and maybe I'll get an opportunity to talk to Tom that week, and if I do, we'll get him on to do it, and maybe even have someone else on. Definitely by either the Temple game or the Iowa game, we'll have either Ryan or Richie back for sure. I won't be doing these things solo too often, because every time I do it, I think like it's going to be a 10-minute show and it ends up being 50 minutes. It's the first time I looked at the clock. I can't. It's amazing, but that's because I've been behind this football team since I can remember, since I was a kid, over 45 years ago, I would say, is when I started to understand college football like a kid. Couldn't really get behind Rutgers. You know, the sad story, I've said it millions of times, but this is why I feel the way I do. And most people don't know this story, especially all the new viewers, but when I was down in South Florida, and I'll tell this story a few more times so people remember it or if they've never heard it. But when I was in South Florida doing a sports talk radio, I actually put together a deal on a radio station to do a weekly Rutgers football report. So it was awesome. I had Coach Schiano on, and that was it. It was Coach and I every week, and they paid for it. I was able to get Rutgers to pay for I forget what it was, like a 10-minute report, 15-minute report every week, because obviously they wanted to recruit down in South Florida. And I was like, yeah, I'm in South Florida. I'm on a radio station. So that was great. I was able to meet Coach at a sports bar when he was down there recruiting, and we set it up, and that was awesome. I'm sure I got the tape somewhere. I got so many old tapes. I got to put them together at some point. Really valuable stuff that I'll always cherish, but I'll get that done one of these days. And so that's how far I go back. Rutgers and Coach Schiano. And that's why I'm invested the way that I am and why I can turn a 10-minute report into 50. It wouldn't happen after a loss, I'll tell you that right now. Okay, we'll hopefully talk to you guys again after Temple, definitely before Iowa. Go Rutgers. In the description area of the channel, again, comment section. Tell me what you think about Rutgers' win over Boston College. Tell me what you think about how your feelings have changed, if at all, before Boston College, after Boston College, on the rest of their season. What you think about the quarterback situation, and who maybe impressed you the most as far as player. Number of them. I mean, at the top of my list is Bailey, but who impressed you as far as the players are concerned? Let us know. Let us know what you think, and please subscribe. Subscribing to the channel, sharing the video is extremely important. Share the video, subscribe, like. All these things are very important, because if you are a true blue Rutgers fan, New Jersey native like I am, the more that we can build up this specific show, and of course the channel that I run, easier it'll be for me to do even more of these types of videos for Rutgers. That includes basketball. So just keep that in mind. Subscribe, like, and definitely share the video. All of that stuff, very important to the success of the channel and these reports. Go Rutgers. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again next time, right here on, do I have a title for this show? I think I do, but you get the point. Rutgers football, baby. Want to know? We'll see you next time.